Thanks for joining the Welcome to Consciousness podcast, where we are raising consciousness together. We'll be discussing all things consciousness, awakening, healing, purpose, and so much more. If you haven't already, you can hit subscribe or like, or you can follow us along on Instagram or check out our website. Let's get started. Well, g'day there, and thanks for tuning in to Welcome to Consciousness. We've got our next guest on the show, Tessa Marnane, and I'm really excited to have you here, Tess. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, and I have just spoken on Tessa's podcast as well, and so check that episode out. I'll give you the link as well, and you can check out that. You'll hear more about Tess now because I want to introduce who she is. So Tessa is a woman of Irish origin. I love your accent, by the way.
Thank you. I get that a lot.
She's a soulmate to her partner, Tony, a mother of two children, Alex and Leo, and stepmom to Aitan. Tessa is a postpartum doula who focuses on providing families emotional and practical support for birth or post-birth of their child. Tessa saw a gap in how isolated motherhood can be, so this led her into the world of connecting women, and she's now running circles and retreats for women. Tessa has a Bachelor Degree in social care and previously worked in leadership roles with vulnerable groups within the care industry for 18 years. So fantastic to have you here. And what I really want to explore is I want to know more about you and what you're doing, but really your journey with consciousness, because that's really the topic that we're covering. And I want to go beyond just talking about and having theories about consciousness, but what it's been like actually in your experience and your journey to have that more awareness, spiritual, energetic connection, and what led you to that and all of that. So I just wanted to kick it off and say, can you tell us a bit more about your background and then how you came to experience consciousness for yourself?
Yeah, of course. So thank you for that lovely introduction. I suppose it all really kind of started when I suppose I'll go back to when I lived in Ireland. So I've come to Australia in 2013. And I was living a very unconscious life in Ireland, very conditioned, and had a lot of trauma from my childhood. My mother was actually an alcoholic and was very disconnected from me for most of my childhood, and then she died when I was 20.
Wow.
So I was just numbing that pain and, that kind of disconnection from your parent, which is always a difficult one, with alcohol, drugs, partying, whatever I could get my hands on in my 20s. And then I ended up in university because I followed my intuition, and I managed to get through this degree, and I don't know how, but I did it. And then I had a few things at the time kind of holding me back, and I felt that way. I felt constricted. So I said I was going traveling, and everyone was shocked. They were like, "You can't leave Ireland. What do you mean? Where are you going to go?" All this fear and all this horrible kind of pressure. So I just went. My brother was already in New Zealand, and I said to him, let's go to Thailand and just see what happens. But we did have the visa for Australia, because you kind of have to plan that for a year. So we had that upper, sleeves. And then we ended up in Thailand for 2 months. So my brother and I, we're not that far apart in age, 3 years. So everyone thought we were a couple. So awkward. No, we're brother and sister, but it was funny. And we just had the best time in Thailand because it was really freeing. We were just doing whatever we wanted. We didn't have a plan. So we traveled around there. And my brother and I are quite similar personalities. So we're quite outgoing and, we talk to anyone and we just had the best time. So that was great. And then he met a French girl and went off somewhere else. And then I went to the Philippines because I had done something in university with some Swedish people and they were in the Philippines doing stuff with an orphanage. So I went there to kind of see that because I've always had this altruistic part of me. Like I've always done work abroad through school and uni. I worked in orphanages in Belarus. And then I've been to Sweden doing some care work over there on a exchange. And I've always done like stuff at home in Ireland as well with disability groups and things like that. So so when I come to Australia, then it was just eye-opening. Like I just could not believe how similar but different in the culture that was here, and it was really quite shocking at how, I don't know, to me I feel like you're so much freer than we are at home. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's the vast environment. I don't know. It feels different here, but also I was away from everything I knew and everyone I knew. And although I did do a stint at a farm with a lot of Irish girls packing apples and pears, I got out of that quite quickly. And then it just started opening my eyes to the possibility of being more free. It's what I would explain it as. So yeah, that was really, I suppose, when it all started, was coming here.
Yeah, wow. It's amazing to hear that because I haven't always looked at Australia like that, but there was obviously a big contrast for you.
Ireland is small, like it's smaller than Victoria. We can go across the country in 3 hours and up and down in 7. So if you compare that to like Australia and 25 million people, we only have 4.5. I'm coming from a very small-minded community who all practice Catholic religion. It's very different.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing, beautiful country, and we have some great positives, but there's loads of negatives as well, for me.
Yeah. And it's often your experience and your perspective. But you said you came to Australia and then you started to explore yourself more and you felt more free. And so where did consciousness and awareness and things come into it for you along that journey?
Well, really, when I met my partner, Tony, he has lived a very conscious life in my eyes, and he started challenging me on my beliefs. So I suppose it was when I met him, really, is that things were really kind of railroaded, because I was like, oh my God. I started to really question things then, like, all the indoctrination and everything kind of had come up. And I was seeing a psychologist at the time, and he was diagnosing me with adjustment disorder. How funny is that? Like, that's such a made-up thing. What the hell? So,
as in adjusting to a new culture? Is that what?
I think so. I don't know what the hell he was on about, but he did a bit of cognitive behavioral therapy with me, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
And then he just closed on me. He was like, I can't help you. So
it probably wasn't aligning with what your partner was supporting you with.
I went along with it, but he was like, you're fixed. I was like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I've done lots of counselling and psychotherapy along the way, but nothing has ever really hit home or found the root cause of trauma and things like that. So it's only now, I suppose, that I'm seeing things more clearly from the impact that mum mum had on me, really, my own mother, and how that, even though my father is an amazing father and he's so connected, having that, I suppose, rupture in your childhood, it doesn't go away. It comes out in different ways as I get older.
And
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes that's why there's resistance to maybe going into that awareness and having your beliefs challenged and things, because you don't want to open those doors.
Yeah. And it's been suppressed for so long. Like, I've been this real personality of like, oh, you're so resilient, and you've come through that so strong, and these are the words I'm hearing because I've made a life for myself, maybe, and maybe done a few more things than some people who have that trajectory often maybe continue that cycle, like, and end up in an alcoholic or be an alcoholic. And I've changed that. I'm actually with someone who doesn't drink at all, and I'm very rarely drink alcohol nowadays. So there's lots of different things that I live my life by now, that I could never see myself doing if I lived in Ireland, to be honest.
And I just wanted to go back into that time when you're with your partner and he's like challenging your, not probably just your beliefs, but just your perspective on life, and getting to go beneath the conditioning. And
well, he didn't know he was doing it at the time. Like,
okay.
he was
just living his life.
Living his life. But he was doing. I was always a terrible sleeper, and I've been told that since I was a child. And I was actually working in residential care at the time. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's with child protection clients, and I was on call a lot. And I had no good sleep habits at all. Like, I was awake till 1 a.m. I could really struggle to fall asleep, and then I'd be kind of up early. And my nervous system was a nightmare. Like, it was completely out of balance. So when me and Tony moved in together, he was like, well, we need to go to bed at this time, and we'll do a meditation, and we'll have the window open, and we won't have our phones near our head, and I always turn off all the power around the bed in the room. And I was like, what? Like, what? This is so foreign. Okay. I thought he was mental, but I was like, I'll go along with it because I love him and he's really, sexy.
That's a good enough reason.
And so now that I know more, I'm like, oh my God, like, he changed my life. Because once I started getting proper sleep and having that good sleep hygiene, like, I was a different person. Like, I really was able to kind of come down from that place that I was in, and I would call it, I was just so heightened. I was heightened, like, kind of like the clients I was working with. I was up there with them. So it was really interesting how that happened. And also with the food that we were eating, he was a very clean eater, very organic, no preservatives. I was calling him fussy, but he is not, now that I know more. And we lived in a really tiny bungalow at the back of his nan's house for 2 years, and we were very, like, contained in that kind of environment. So it was really nice to have experienced that with him. And that was the start of our relationship. So funny. But yeah.
It sounds like it was just like meant to be for you to end up in that relationship in that time, to just shift your energetic state. And like I often talk about it, on every level, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, it's all integrated, and we experience it, embody it on all these different levels.
Yeah.
And these practical things are actually often the way it starts. Shifting those things in the physical then allows us then to have a bit more sleep and a bit more space, a bit more health and energy.
Yeah.
And then allows us to go a bit deeper in our journey. And you mentioned that you've been unpacking trauma and things that, for a start, you could never do in the traditional sense of a psychologist or whoever you're seeing.
Well, in Ireland, I was just numbing it with, substances. And then when I come out of that and I met Tony, I was, I suppose, faced with it, but not really until I had my children. Because they mirror, your trauma.
Exactly.
So
we talked about that on your podcast.
Yeah, we do. And that is kind of the work I'm doing at the moment is reparenting myself and noticing when I'm activated now, because I've something the children have done that triggers me. So I'm trying to put in lots of practices, and I have people that help me with this. And what I've already told you is I'm doing aware parenting, and I have this empathy buddy, I'll call her, a listening partner. Actually, I have a few that I will talk to get my emotions heard, and then when I'm feeling like my cup is full around my emotions and talking to my partner and stuff like that around things, at the end of the day, I have more capacity to respond in a better way to my children instead of the ways that I think I was parented, which was quite disconnected. And, there's lots of sayings that I hear myself saying. Oh, it's terrible, actually, the Irish way of saying things sometimes. It can be really it can be really negative.
Yeah.
My child will do something and I'll be like, I'll stop myself now, but I used to be just so conditioned to say things like, you'll be fine, just get up, and what are you crying for? Or, very negative kind of connotations around feelings in boys, because that is really a thing. It's not celebrated in Ireland. It's letting men have feelings. I never really saw many men cry before I came here. And that's quite a large generalization, but that is my experience. So,
it's my experience too. And
so it's really interesting. Yeah, and raising boys now, I really want to change that. I want to change the way they see themselves in the world. I'm passionate about that, actually.
There was two interesting things that I wanted to ask you more about, and the first was on the topic of healing. And a lot of people, I will hear them say, I want to try and heal before I have kids, for example. But I wonder, is that even possible sometimes? Because it's actually the kids that actually help you heal by mirroring a lot of your own childhood wounds or motherhood or fatherhood wounds. I just wanted to see, what do you think about that? Is that your experience? It's
I don't think
help you heal.
Yeah. I don't think the healing ever stops. I don't think we can ever turn around one day and go, I'm healed. It's just not possible, because there is so much to do. In the world that we are living in now, how could we even say that any way that we were brought up is not going to come out at some point, positive or negative? There is such a disconnection in this world right now. There is no way we will all be healed at once or ever. Maybe our children, if they're raised in a way of attachment and love and feeling all their emotions, they could say they are living a pretty well connected, untraumatized, healed life. But that's 20 years away. And that's their experience, and they could still have a mini trauma happen to them at school or when bullied or something like that, they will still carry with them. So I don't know.
There'll always be healing to do as a human. in the human body.
Yeah. And if it doesn't happen in your own family, it'll happen from your peers, or
Yeah.
there'll always be work to do. I
Yeah.
believe that.
The other thing that I hadn't planned to ask you this, but it was just about your Irish background and Ireland, and you've kind of illustrated like there's such a strong culture there, at least what you experienced. And there's obviously a lot of trauma there and disconnection from feelings. And I'm just drawing these parallels because like St. Patrick's Day was celebrated. It is St. Patrick's Day, isn't it, that the Catholics celebrate? And then, at my kids' Catholic school, they really like celebrating this day. It's such a great thing. But on the other hand, I'm listening to some influencers I respect that tell the backstory of the trauma that all caused. And when St. Patrick came in and cleared out a lot of, now I don't know enough about it, but I just wanted to get your perspective on that, because it's interesting to challenge culture in this way. It's things that are celebrated, but I'm just thinking, is there a connection between the trauma there and the disconnect and that, kind of Catholic patriarchal system that's in place that doesn't allow you to challenge and question the culture, and then people's own trauma and disconnect from their feelings, and then where we're at now, returning to our feminine and masculine energy in its true sense?
Well, I don't know a lot about St. Patrick either, because we're only taught a specific story in school, and I think it's more of a mythology than a real story. So we were always taught that St. Patrick drove all the snakes out of Ireland. Have you heard that one?
Yeah, I have.
And there's pictures depicting it. Like, it's really, that's like embedded in my psyche. So when I come here, it's like, the snakes, where's your St. Patrick? Like, how ridiculous. But I don't know that, I don't even look at anything to do with like Ireland now. It's really funny. Like, I love where I'm from, but I just, I don't like read anything about it. Like, I just have the embedded psyche, like stuff I was taught in school come up every now and again. But like ancestrally, I hold a lot of my grandmothers. We all hold grandmothers and our mothers' trauma. And I know for a fact that my grandmother lived through poverty. And although comes from a middle class family, she still had times where she was just eating bread and butter. And, they had the war, and there was like a lot of it fighting for independence at some point. Like, she was born in like the 30s or 40s. So Ireland went through like huge poverty-stricken war times where we were fighting with England for our independence. So there's so much like environment trauma around there. So even if it doesn't directly impact you, you're going to feel it from the connection of all the other humans around you feeling it or fighting for you or whatever, so that's there. And to this day, I know for a fact that I have some serious trauma around food. If someone wastes food, I am a psychopath. Like, I just like, why are you throwing away that food? Like, you cannot throw it away. Like, it's embedded in me, and I really need to work through that stuff because it's ridiculous. There's plenty of food, but that's clear to me that that's in me. So there's lots of ancestral stuff coming up, and I'm noticing it more around like, the different experiences that my grandmother's had. It's really interesting.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of things that connect together there.
Yeah.
And I know part of what we talked about was just really feeling into intuition and into your body to know yourself and define yourself. And really have you seen the shift in you being sort of in that cultural bubble to, you being connected to yourself, your own body, your own... Yeah.
I have really probably noticed it since I become a mother. So if there's any way to connect to your body, it's get pregnant. Like you just like, whoa, okay, there's something growing inside me. So it was a massive shift for me becoming a mother. I was just so aware of my body and my internal messaging, and all of that stuff just came to fruition, and it was amazing, the transformation I went through. Because although I was like on an awakening path anyway, I felt that when I became pregnant, it all just made sense. And then I had this newfound, like, you know, expectation around, or not an expectation, it was more of a newfound belief system that I had to protect this child, and I have to make sure that this child has a healing, beautiful birth. And like I knew it from the start. It was weird. It was like it came to me. I like to think that my mum is like kind of up there, like just giving me some messages that like, you can do this better than me, Tessa, you know, like, and I like to have that compassion around her. So yeah, I just knew when I become a mother, everything was different. And yeah, the birth it's quite good. Like it went well, and then it still had its moments. I wouldn't say it was perfect. But then my second birth was amazing. Like it was the healing, transformational home birth that I always have wanted. So that's what changed everything.
We're taking a quick break because I want to let you know that I'm looking for some big dreamers who either feel disconnected from or stuck in their big dream to take all their power back, to thrive in every area of their life and create everything that they dream of. It doesn't matter how big the obstacles are or how impossible it seems. If you've got a big dream, whether it's for your business, your career, your health, your relationships, or to make a big impact in the world, or all of the above, I'm telling you, if you feel it somewhere inside, it's absolutely possible. The universe wouldn't put that inside of you if it wasn't, and I'd love to help you get there. If this resonates with you, please reach out through Instagram or my website. I'd love to meet you, hear about your dreams and your challenges, and see what's possible together. And now we'll return back to the show. And do you feel like that's where you've really connected with yourself and be like, oh, this is who I'm supposed to be?
If you want to feel empowered and in control as a woman, have a home birth, because that is your space. It's your body. It's your rules. There's no one telling you what to do. I did hire a private midwife just in case, because, you know, there's always that fear-based stuff like just stuck there from my conditioning. But most of the birth and the power around the birth was very, like, I felt very empowered, and I didn't really feel like anyone was hands-on on my baby, and obviously Tony. So it was just amazing that we had that experience together at home, and we can tell him, like, when he's older, like, that's where you were born, right there. And it was an amazing experience. Yeah. I loved it.
No, I love that. And maybe for those listening that don't know that that's even an option or how that would go about it, just in a brief nutshell, like what do you need to do to be able to take that path with?
Well, you just have to do the work. Like, you don't run a marathon and go, I'm just going to train for one day. You kind of have to like go on this journey of learning about natural physiological birth, and you have to prepare your body for it. And then and
in the normal way, you would go meet someone, you get pregnant, you go see the doctor, you get referred to the hospital, you go meet someone. So do you do any of that, or do you go somewhere else? Is there where do you start?
You kind of do have to end up in the Western medical system a bit, because you have, like, if you want to do the tests, the early tests, it's up to you. You don't have to. This is the beauty of, I think a lot of people don't know, is like, you actually don't have to do anything that they tell you. Although we believe that we have to. Nothing that they say is mandatory. So that's really interesting for some people to go, oh, okay, so I don't have to go for that test, or I don't have to like have an ultrasound. No, you don't. Now, I still did what I was told because I had a private midwife that wanted, certain checked boxes, which was fine. I was happy to, but most of my appointments were at home, and she would check me in front of my toddler, and it was all very home environment anyway, so it was all nicer than my first experience, but we were well resourced around that as well. Like, so often people can't afford a home birth. It can cost up to like $7,000. But you'd spend it on a wedding, so why would you not spend this on your birth? Like, you don't really forget your birth at all. Like, this stays with you for the rest of your life, the same as a wedding. You should spend it. It's a really important milestone in your life. Like,
Yeah.
I don't see why women don't think we're worth that,
$7,000 to be empowered, to feel, like you said, it's one of the best ways to feel empowered as a woman.
Yeah.
That's money well spent, invested.
It is, isn't it? And then you don't have the counselling and the psychologists and the trauma that comes from often having intervention-based birth in the hospital. Not all. Some go really well, but we're seeing massive statistics now coming out of hospitals with trauma. So why would you want to be around that? Like, if you can avoid it, and you're a low risk pregnancy, or you think it's all going to go to plan, I would be having your baby at home in the best possible environment for you to be comfortable, not disrupted.
Yeah.
But that's my opinion.
Yeah, amazing. And like, for anyone that feels drawn to that, then you're a good place to start talking to for some support. I mean, can we go into what you do in your work and what you're passionate about? And because really this is where your experience with consciousness and your awakening and your healing journey has now got you to this place where you're passionate about helping women in all these different ways. So how about you tell us more about what you are doing, what you're passionate about, how you can support someone that may be in this situation?
Yeah, so I've started a business last year called Doula Tribe. And originally it was just, I'm going to study to be a doula, and I'm still studying. I'm terrible at doing courses. And yeah, I was like, oh, I'll do this. And then I really wasn't ready actually to be a doula because my son was only, I don't know, he was young, like 6 months old. So I was like, nah, I can't actually take on the clients, but I'll just do social media for a while and, just get myself familiar with the space, because it's a whole new environment for me. Like, I've never had my own business, always worked for someone else, and I've always worked in the care industry, like with vulnerable youth and disability and elderly, and just like, I've always worked with people, but I've never actually worked in this niche, I would call it, environment. So yeah, I had to familiarize myself, and then it just kind of started taking off last September. So I got a client in November, I had a client have a home birth at home, and she had her first vaginal birth after 2 cesareans, and she had a private midwife. It was the best thing I've ever done.
Which is amazing, because I shared our story, and from my memory is I didn't feel like we were allowed a vaginal birth after having a cesarean. At least that was the message I was getting once it was filtered through.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Often people don't have good information or don't go looking when they're conditioned. So, people who start seeing other things that are available to them. But if you're kind of tunnel visioned in this indoctrination or the society or the culture that you are in, you're not going to see or hear the other things. So I believe that consciousness is linked to like empowering birth, healthy living, like can often bring you on a consciousness journey as well if you get really sick. So being aware that this is not for everyone as well, it's maybe not because you do have to go against systems and governments and people and beliefs and family and friends, and you can lose people along the way. But if it feels right, and I always think back to how do I feel in this moment? Is it feel good? Am I happy? Does it feel like I'm compassionate? Yeah, okay, I'm good. Like it doesn't feel bad, it doesn't feel yuck, then I'm gonna go forward with it. And it's the same with everything, and that's how the doula stuff just made me feel. It made me feel good. It made me feel like I was helping women achieve a goal, and really helping families and men especially, because often the man can feel really like worried at a birth or, kind of not useful. So my job is to help men feel useful and give them things to do, practical, emotional, just kind of coach men into like supporting their partner, because or another woman, I want to include all families here, but it really is just about like giving them the tools and the information to help them have a good experience, because that partnership or having the baby, not me, not anyone else. So I really wanted to help people do that really well and have that experience that I had, I suppose, or some part of it anyway, because I really would love women to have better births and no trauma and come out happy like I was. That I would love that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, like the system would paint a picture that you will cause trauma and that's to be feared, taking that path. And it's just sort of, you see this pattern over and over where the system that we're in society says, no, you can't do that, you can't do that. This is the reason why, and not allowed to question it. And really what we're doing is connecting more with ourselves. So this isn't for anyone about listening to us to just do it because we said. It's about what resonates with you and what empowers you, what is your heart and your soul drawing you to, and that's the journey.
Yeah, it is, and that's the thing. Like, I've seen so many women disconnected through motherhood and thinking they can do it all on their own, and we have this martyr, good girl, like mentality, and it's so conditioned from culture, and it's horrible because we weren't on this earth, not that long ago, and we were kind of in tribes, or we had our extended family all near us, and we had maybe 14 people raising your children, like not one or two, like that's not enough, like. And now we have this terrible privatization where we have to pay for help all the time. And so, whether or not we can move away from that and somehow kind of fight against that, I don't know. But I think it's important for us to understand that this is not the way we should be living, like this individualized, I don't even know my neighbor lifestyle. It's so disconnected.
Yeah, no, I love hearing just your story and your journey with all of this because, there's so many shifts happening with especially the community that's going to gather around my podcast and yours and everything else we're doing. But there is a more openness even to maybe those that have done it the mainstream way, to questioning things and looking outside the box. And so it's just a fantastic story that you've got, but also resources that you've got that actually help women, which is what I wanted to ask about. What other ways you're helping women? Because I know you've got some circles and retreats and things, and
Yeah, I just ran one yesterday. It was beautiful. We had 12 women come together and they did like somatic practices, nervous system balancing, yoga and qigong, Reiki, chakra balancing, and some vibrational kinesiology. So it was really special. And I really feel like the women got a lot out of it.
Mm.
And it was only a 3-hour event, so I want to do more of that. It's
Mm.
very accessible to mums who need their children minded on a Sunday for 3 hours. This is the mindset I'm having around it. So I want to make it accessible for mums, but any women. And then I'm running a mother circle on Wednesday mornings for pregnancy and new babies 0 to 5 months, to connect and just talk about the adjustment to motherhood or pelvic floor issues we're having, or real life issues that we have where we don't have enough sleep and self-care, and just to bring them together, because the council run mothers groups can be a little bit disjointed, or often don't have the best facilitators. So I'm hoping to bring a nicer space around that and celebrate motherhood.
Mm.
So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, and like you said, it's really meant to be a natural way of life, and we're creating so many new ways of relating to each other, and so it's amazing that you're offering this kind of support for people.
Yeah, thank you.
And paving the way in that sense. And what's the best way for people to get in touch with you or connect with you if they would like to?
Well, I have my podcast. So Doula Tribe is the podcast, but you can find everything on Instagram and through my link tree. And I have a Facebook and I have a website as well. But it's Nurture Doula Tribe.
Amazing. Sounds good. And just before we finish up, I just wanted to ask, what advice would you give someone that is on this journey of consciousness to their true self or being fully empowered as a human being? Big question.
Yeah. Well, I think we have to connect back in with ourselves. We have to acknowledge trauma, but realizing it's not always about what the majority are doing. And this is the thing, I suppose, which was the biggest for me, because we all kind of do the same things in Ireland, all very similar. So having that kind of authenticity is what Gabor Mate calls it, was interesting. And I really got to that point where I was like, oh, okay, what is my authenticity? And then I think you can really find ways that feel right to you, and you can live your life by being open and compassionate to others, and that'll always lead you down the right path. That's how we get to where we want to be, how we find purpose. And you just have to connect back in, really. You just have to find the people that you need to be around you. Find your tribe.
Yeah, amazing. No, I love all of that. And I often call it a heart-centered life. It's really, because that's where you connect with yourself there.
Yeah, and you have to shed the old ways, or you have to move 10,000 miles away.
And look, it's not always glamorous. There's some huge challenges, and trauma is another topic that I've talked about, but that we could go into. But there's so much energy underneath that, what we've suppressed from our own lives, ancestral. It's like you start lifting up those layers and you need support. Like you can't do that journey on your own, and you're not supposed to.
No, you're not. No, that's it. And it's nice to know that there's a lot more people around now kind of living this way, because then it doesn't feel as lonely. And I love everyone in Ireland and all the things that they're doing too, and I respect everyone's journey and where they're at, and I just live in my life.
Absolutely. I love that, and that's what we're all doing here.
Yeah.
And so we're going to wrap it up now. So thanks for tuning in here. Thanks, Tess, again.
Thank you. No problem.
Sharing your
Thanks
story.
for having me.
No, it's been an absolute honour. So we'll see you next week, and we've got more guests coming up as well. So we'll keep in touch and reach out to Tess if you've got any questions as well.
Thank you.